What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about Opendoor. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So this past week wasn't necessarily the greatest for the broader market, nor Opendoor. So Opendoor went down 12.68%. In all fairness, it did do a little bit better than a lot of other growth and speculative stocks. And Opendoor had a crazy sell-off during the Friday pre-market. So give yourself a shout out if you were able to catch this low. So it looks like 484 was the low for there. But going forward, as questionable as a lot of things that did come out, such as dilution on multiple different levels and spectrums, going forward, the market's officially priced all that in. So we're kind of at neutral, if that makes sense. So that might be a positive thing. But one thing that did come out near the end of Friday was this. So I'm sure everyone and their dog already knows that there might be the shutdown concluding. And typically what we do see is we see a little bit of a surge of Fed speakers, Trump talking on Sunday. So in my opinion, I think it's going to be Sunday afternoon. That's where we get this announcement that technically the shutdown is done. So I think in general, that in among itself would really cause the market to spike. At the same time though, because of the shutdown, we have not received a lot of key labor data in a very long time. So that's where this upcoming week could be very positive for a lot of stocks, including Opendoor. So for instance, on Thursday, we do have CPI, initial jobless claims, coming up. And right now it shows still as being paused. But again, if we get that shutdown kind of concluding, we will be getting that data. Same for Friday. So PPI, retail sales. So we could get some optimism because if a lot of this labor-linked data is somewhat negative, slightly negative, not a crazy like Challenger job cuts, but it could allude to optimism for a rate cut, and that would be massive for a lot of growth stocks, and including Opendoor. So just wanted to kind of bring that up. We do have a lot of Fed speakers, mind you, throughout the whole week, so that could cause some volatility. There hasn't really been any official news, nothing really coming out from 𝗂𝗧 since the earnings. Only thing that did come out that 𝗂𝗧 kind of retweeted was this. So you did have Hand to God posting about how Fannie Mae is removing minimum credit score requirements. So that would be huge, massive for the market, right? That is going to just increase demand tenfold. And so a lot of individuals and companies would be able to benefit from this, one of which would be Opendoor. So with a lot more potential buyers out in the market right now that don't have credit, only paid cash for stuff, and or whatever else, technically those individuals will be going and potentially using Opendoor to buy. So this is where marketing is going to be really, really key. And my interpretation of Opendoor's earnings is that marketing AI, that's going to be what really drives a huge amount of demand. So I wanted to bring this up. Oddly enough, a lot of people aren't really talking about this as much as I would have anticipated, because this technically is huge for the broader market. Although kind of does give me '08 type of vibes. Of course, there could be a lot of issues with this, but that's another problem potentially. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Aside from that, going into this upcoming week, 22.29% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 158.07 million shares overall being shorted. Friday, shorts were fairly active, so got to give credit when credit was due. Technically, Opendoor did phenomenal considering everything that did come out, as well as shorts throwing a lot of kind of shares against it, right? So Opendoor shorts did increase 3.02 million shares just on Friday. And even looking at this, at the peak, they were increasing a ton, like almost 9.5 million. So definitely this week, you will see shorts probably very active. And I think there's also more to it happening behind the scenes, some signs of manipulation, because cost to borrow minimum right here is negative 0.06. That is a annual rate, so it's not that big of a deal, but the fact that it is negative does mean that there is a broker out there, or brokers, physically paying people to short Opendoor. So definitely some signs of manipulation for that. From a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 7 to 750 by the end of this upcoming Friday. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub $5. So it is going to be a little bit of a battle. When it comes down to Opendoor closing at 656, that does mean that the 650 and below strike prices are in the money. So you have 5,000 at the 650, 2,000 at the 6. So you're not going to see any bump up in the stock price or anything like that. Looking forward into this upcoming week, you have 14,000 at that 8, 10,000 at that 750, and then 9,000 at that 7. So something just to keep in mind, with it closing at 656 on Friday, right below this S1. And I know every time I go over the technicals, I always get one or two comments on people just saying like Opendoor doesn't follow technicals, there's no point. I do agree that momentum stocks they just have a mind of their own, but Opendoor has really kind of calmed down the last 2 weeks, and it has been largely following the technicals. So this 657 is going to be a key pivot. Best case scenario, it closes above or gets above that early on Monday, and then that way it kind of can move higher. And if shutdown, all that positive news is still going forward, then yeah, we could definitely see 790 on the table very, very soon, as well as the broader market would just go through a whole level of FOMO. But just take note of that. So you have 444, 576, and then that 657 as kind of the key support levels, just to watch for that. Aside from all of that fun stuff on the actual chart itself, still not necessarily the best, below a lot of the key pivotal moving averages that momentum stocks kind of follow, and that is the 50-day moving average and the 10. So just kind of watch for those. Most likely it is just going to be wedge bound between that 50 and that 100-day moving average, most likely this upcoming week. So that 50-day moving average is 768, and then that 100 is at 485. So if things go really sideways for whatever reason, just watch for that 100-day moving average, and that hasn't been tested in a very long time, since pretty much the lows for the most part. Looks like July the 14th. And then aside from that, just like I said, watch that 50 and that 10-day moving average. One thing that hasn't come out, interestingly enough, is analyst ratings. So far, we've had none posted to tip ranks, which is very, very odd. I've seen a lot of articles coming out from analysts, but none of which have actually posted any ratings on tip ranks, which is very, very odd. I don't know if there's just a lag going on or something happening behind the scenes, because a lot of my brokers I have conveniently are doing updates all in the same day, which is on the 8th. I don't know if there's some coincidence going on there, but nonetheless, we might be getting some ratings coming early next week. And because there is a hell of a lot of things to digest from Opendoor's earnings, right? You have kind of a lot of dilution, which in my opinion gives me more AMC type of vibes. And then you do have a lot of good, like, growing fundamentals. And so it all depends on if you're optimistic or bearish on Opendoor. And hopefully you guys do appreciate my viewpoint. I like to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Don't hype you up, don't bring you down. I just say it how it is. So in my opinion, I do feel it's all going to come down to kind of the shutdown news. And because by that coming out, we'll get a whole new level of labor link data, and then that's where we can kind of start to assume rate cuts. Let me know your thoughts on Opendoor. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.